Hey guys, what is happening? Dan here from Huck, Snowboarding Explained. I'm just going to dive straight into this video off the back of our last video, which went over the three basic snowboard shapes. True twins are snowboards that are defined by their true twin shape. That kind of makes sense, right? So basically what the true twin shape means is that both ends, the nose and the tail, are symmetrical. That means if you cut a line down the middle, they're both going to be exactly the same shape, width and length. So usually riders on the true twin are centered right in the middle of the board. When riders are centered in the middle of the board, this is going to give you a really predictable feel under your feet because the nose and the tail are going to be the same length outside your feet. And what that is going to do is it's going to allow you to predict how the flex is going to feel when you're riding both normal and switch. True twins are usually all mountain or freestyle boards or a mixture of those both. Most true twins which are branded as freestyle boards are also kind of branded as all mountain boards as well, because no manufacturer of boards or brand of boards wants anybody to think that they sell something that can only be used in the park. Nobody would buy a board if they thought, oh, I can only use this in the park and I can't take it out in the mountain, and if I do it's going to explode. Nobody would do that. So what they do is they make it park focused. If they're making a park board for something like, say, the Huck knife, is a really kind of park oriented board. It's got a camber profile that allows you to ride really cleanly in the park, but they also brand that as an all mountain freestyle board, just simply because if they didn't, then probably nobody would buy it, because the only way to get to the park is by going down the piste usually. So if you say you can't use this on the piste, it's not going to work, then people would think, well, how the heck am I going to get it there? I'm not going to carry it. So we need to kind of always be thinking about, when we're talking about sort of freestyle true twins and all mountain true twins, the subtle sort of differences there and what they're actually designed to do best, rather than where you can take them. Because of course you could ride something that's designed for the powder in the park. You're not going to have somebody come over and tell you can't be there with that board. It's just boards are designed specifically to do specific things. But when we talked about the three basic shapes, what we did was we talked a little bit about how they affect riding and where they're best suited. So let's dig a little deeper into that true twin shape and think about the shape itself and how the symmetricality of it and the way that you've got exactly the same length, nose and tail is going to affect riding and what it's going to allow you to do best. So most beginner boards are true twin boards. The main reason that beginners usually get recommended true twin boards, or true twin boards are generally designed for beginners, is because most beginners will learn to do a heel side turn before they do a toe side turn. And that means when they go down their first runs, if they are goofy footed like me for example, you'll be facing down the mountain with your right leg leading, and then you'll go into a heel side turn and pull across the slope. And then you'll go into a heel side slide, and then instead of going onto that toe side and coming back around, what you're probably going to learn to do first, because it's really scary when you're a beginner to put your back to the mountain, is you're probably going to go into switch, and then you're going to lead with your left foot and traverse across the slope that way. Now, as you can imagine, having a true twin and a board that rides exactly the same when you're going goofy and when you're going switch is going to be very beneficial when you're learning, because the last thing you want to do is have to learn to ride a board in two different ways in two different directions. So for this reason, most beginner boards are true twins, because they allow riders to ride switch most easily and learn to ride switch most easily. And obviously you want to progress when you're beginning first off, and having a board that handles both directions exactly the same way is going to be of sort of paramount importance. So when manufacturers are building their beginner boards, usually they're thinking about what's going to be the easiest for a beginning rider who's just starting out to get to grips with this board, what's going to make them feel most confident quickest, and that's usually a true twin shape. I talked a little bit about the same length of board outside of your feet on either end as well, and it's difficult to talk about the length of boards without talking about the flex as well, because the stiffness and the length are intrinsically related. Now if you've got a soft board, a soft flex if you will, that means that you're going to be able to bend it easily when you're on it, either by pulling the front up or pulling the tail up, or when you're turning you're going to feel it flex a lot under your feet. Having a softer board is going to be better when you're learning, but of course, like I said, the flex is intrinsically related to the length, because if you have the same stiffness of board in a longer board, it's going to take less energy to bend it, and it's going to take more energy to bend a soft board if it's shorter. But you're not really going to see very much difference in 2 or 3 centimeters. So if you're riding a 156 or a 158, for example, you're probably not going to see that much of a difference or feel that much of a difference. But if you jumped on a 140 and a 160, you would probably feel quite a lot of difference. Now, the reason I'm talking about this and just going into a quick kind of explanation of flex and length is because it's important to know, if you're coming to choose a board, that you should pick the length that's recommended by the manufacturer, because that's what's going to give you the truest reflection of your ability to flex the board naturally under your feet without really pushing into it. Most manufacturers are going to produce a size chart that's going to tell you what size board is right for you based on your height and your weight. Now, this is calculated to give you better control all over the mountain and make sure that you don't have to really kind of put a lot of energy into bending the board, or that the board isn't bending under your feet without you meaning to. And you will find as well that if you're riding a powder board, for example, like the Jones Hovercraft, which we discussed in the 3 basic shapes videos, that you're probably going to be needing a longer version of that board to give you that better flotation in the powder than you would if you were having a park specific board. Now, a lot of people size down when they come to park specific boards because a smaller board is more maneuverable. That when you're popping up onto rails and when you're turning in the air and turning to get onto a rail, for example, that you've got less board to kind of keep track of, and you're less likely to catch the tip and the tail. So if you're an intermediate or an advanced rider and you're looking for a park board, you may want to size down, but generally if you're a beginner, you want to go for something that's going to be right for your height and weight, especially if you want to ride it all over the mountain. The true twin shape is more playful usually than most, and if you're looking to kind of get into freestyle riding and you want to start buttering and doing flatland tricks and popping kind of manuals and nose manuals and ollieing and all that kind of thing, then a true twin is going to be really, really good for you, because it's going to provide you a really even platform that you can raise your riding off. And if you are looking to improve your switch riding, which is imperative if you're looking to improve your freestyle riding, then a true twin again is going to be the right choice for you, because you're going to need to learn how to ride almost as well switch as you will normal. And let's dig into that a little bit more. So we're talking about switch riding, and we're talking about how these boards handle perfectly going both normal and switch. And the reason that they're designed to do this is because obviously there's a lot of spinning involved in freestyle riding. And again, this is where the true twin really comes into its own, because your position right above the center of your board, which means your weight is centralized, and the boards tend to sort of widen out at the nose and tail, and because they do this symmetrically, that's going to create a sense of inertia when you're spinning. The centrifugal force and weight of that nose and tail, even though it's only kind of very, very slightly wider and longer than the sort of center of the board, is going to create this sense of momentum as you spin. Now, if you imagine trying to spin on a board like the Jones Hovercraft, which has a set back stance, which means that the tail is a lot shorter than the nose, which is going to allow you to kind of rise out of that powder. If you imagine spinning around on that, that's going to be quite uneven as you move, because you're going to have a lot more weight outside of your right foot, for me, because I'm a goofy rider, than I would outside my left. So if I'm looking to spin at high speed, like some of the professional snowboarders do, then that's going to create an uneven kind of spin pattern. But if you're riding a true twin and you've got that even weight distribution, then that's going to allow you to spin really cleanly, and it's not going to affect, say, your trajectory in the air or the way that you're moving through the air, whereas that uneven weight distribution in a non-true twin board may affect that in a way that's going to throw you off. It may only be a few millimeters and a few grams of uneven distribution in something like a directional twin, but when you're hitting some of those professional size jumps, and you're covering sometimes 30 meters and you're spinning 5 times and doing 3 flips at the same time, and you can't spot your landing until that last second, you want something under your feet that is absolutely, completely reliable and stable and weighs exactly the same, because you don't want your spin to be thrown off at all. Now, the reason I'm talking about all this, and most people, 99% of riders, are never going to get to the point where they're doing, a 1260 triple cork, and I wish I could, but I can't because I'm scared and it's crazy, and I can't spend every day of my life practicing. I wish I could. I wish I could live out in the mountains, but I can't. That's a vlog for another day where I'm feeling really sad. But for now, let's kind of keep going and stay on track. The reason I'm sort of talking about this and talking about spins and flips and weight distribution and that kind of thing is because I believe that snowboarding is about knowledge, that if you intrinsically understand the technical aspects of the board under your feet and the way that your body works in tandem with your gear and your equipment, that's going to give you a better sort of route into learning the techniques if you can understand them at their most basic technical level. But there is another kind of popular sort of group of boards that board manufacturers are making, and that's the all-mountain progression board with a kind of freestyle edge. Now, some of these boards may include things like the Burton Process, for example, ridden by pros like Mark McMorris, or the Basic and the Captain DOA. Now, these again are freestyle-oriented boards in the sense that they excel at freestyle because of their shape. And they've all got kind of medium flexes, which is going to allow them to be really usable all over the mountain. They're not going to excel at any one thing specifically, but they're going to be good sort of do-it-all boards. And the camber profiles are going to kind of vary between these. So the Burton Process has both a flying V and a pure pop camber, depending on which version of it you want to go for. The flying V is a bit more forgiving, and the pure pop is a little bit more freestyle oriented, and we'll do a deep dive into camber in another video as well, because that is just a can of worms that we can't afford to open right now, just time wise. And these boards are designed to allow you to explore the whole mountain. They are designed to allow you to go from piste, park to powder all on one board, using the twin sort of shape to give you that really predictable ride. Some people really like the twin shape. I personally learnt on a true twin, and this year I've gone to a directional twin for the first time, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that holds up. I do want to get more into my park and my freestyle riding, but I also love hitting those powder stashes as well, and I really want to explore some backcountry this year, so I'm going to make the switch over to a directional twin, and I'll be sure to let you know how that goes. If we go back to the Burton Process and the Basic and the Captain DOA, they're all, like I said, sort of middle of the road do-it-all boards. They're boards that are very well received, they're very well known, and they're very well regarded. They're going to allow you to explore the whole mountain and jump and pop off everything you want, and spin if you want, because they're designed for it, and yeah, they're going to serve you really, really well. The Captain DOA and the Basic also have two sort of professional versions of those. And when I say professional, I just mean that they're more uprated in terms of their stiffness and their build technology. So the Basic is followed up by the Standard, and the Captain DOA is followed up by the Captain Super DOA. Now, these are just more aggressive versions that are more well suited to riders who are riding a bit faster and a bit harder, because the way that they're going to be flexing the board is going to be more aggressive. They're going to be putting more energy into the boards naturally, because they're moving faster. And again, we're going to kind of come to this when we talk about stiffness in depth in another video, but for now I just want to kind of keep reiterating that the True Twin is not a shape that is limited to just one specific sort of mode of riding. The Standard, for example, is branded as more of an all-mountain and free ride board, and a free ride board is something that you're going to take off-piste through the trees, into the powder, wherever you sort of want to ride freely without the constraints of the resort. So, what have we learned? Basically, that the True Twin shape is great for everything. It's a really freestyle oriented shape that's going to give you a really balanced and comfortable, reliable ride. It's going to give you really even weight distribution, and it's going to allow you to more consistently flex and move the board under your feet with more confidence. It's also going to allow you to progress into the park if you're buying a freestyle kind of oriented board, or it's going to allow you to progress into the backcountry if you're riding a more backcountry focused board like the Standard, for example. So all in all, what we can safely say about the True Twin is that it's a great shape, but that it's not specifically catered to anything other than being reliable and being predictable. So that reliability and predictability is what is at the heart of the True Twin shape. That's what we love about it, and that's why they are some of the best selling snowboards. But what we can say for sure is that the shape is only a part of what makes a snowboard best suited for a specific type of riding or a specific place that you're going to be riding it. The other aspects that influence whether or not a board is well suited for a specific type of riding are going to be the size of the side cut, the flex, the camber, and a bunch of other aspects that we're going to kind of take a deep dive into as we continue to look at more specific boards and generally how they're put together and why they are suited for the purposes that they're suited for. But for now, I think that just about covers it. And yeah, tune in next time to listen to me ramble on about directional twins. For now, I'm Dan from Huck, Snowboarding Explained. I'll see you again.